King Slime. King Slime is a giant, bouncy blob that looks like a regular slime but royalty. It's slow and predictable, except for when it suddenly teleports on top of you. You can summon it with a slime crown, but sometimes it just shows up when you're dealing with a slime invasion. Defeat it, and you get some fancy loot, including a ninja outfit. Why does a giant slime have a ninja trapped inside? No one knows. It also drops a slime mount, letting you bounce around just like the king himself. While easy to beat, it can be deceptively tricky for unprepared players, especially if they get caught in its teleportation. Eye of Cthulhu. The Eye of Cthulhu is the first real test for new players. It starts as a giant floating eyeball that slowly charges at you, but when it loses half its health, it rips off its retina and transforms into a monstrous mouth that's way faster. It only spawns if you have enough health and defense, basically showing up to humble you the moment you feel confident. It will attempt to escape if you don't defeat it before dawn, making it one of the few bosses that can technically run away. If you're lucky, you can get a Shield of Cthulhu from it, granting you a dash ability that makes dodging enemies much easier. Eater of Worlds. A massive, segmented worm that tunnels through the corruption. Chop it up, and each piece keeps fighting independently, making things chaotic. It drops Shadow Scales and Demonite, essential for early game gear. If you're in a Crimson world, you fight the Brain of Cthulhu instead, which is arguably weirder. Fighting the Eater of Worlds in an enclosed space can be a death sentence, as it can surround you and quickly drain your health. However, using piercing weapons or explosives makes the fight much easier. Beating it is crucial for unlocking better armor and tools, making it a key milestone in progressing towards tougher challenges. Brain of Cthulhu. Instead of a giant worm, Crimson players deal with a floating brain that summons creepy eyeballs before exposing its weak core. The more you hit it, the more it teleports around, making you question your own sanity. Defeat it for tissue samples and Crimson ore. Because apparently, crafting armor out of living tissue is normal in Terraria. The fight can get overwhelming due to the large number of minions, but once the second phase begins, it's all about landing precise hits before it blinks away. Unlike the Eater of Worlds, this boss doesn't drop materials directly. It spawns a bunch of loot when defeated, which is a small mercy given the chaos of the fight. Queen Bee. Lurking in the jungle's beehives, Queen Bee is a fast-flying menace that shoots stingers and summons swarms of bees to overwhelm you. Beat her to unlock bee-themed weapons and summon items, such as the bee gun, beekeeper, and the bee's knees. The arena matters a lot in this fight, as getting trapped in honey slows you down and makes dodging much harder. A fun but tricky fight, especially if you stumble upon her lair unprepared. Skeletron. A floating skull with two massive hands, Skeletron is the gatekeeper of the dungeon. Defeat him, and you can finally explore the dangerous depths filled with traps and loot. If you try entering before defeating him, a ghostly guardian instantly obliterates you, because Terraria respects the rules. His spinning attack is especially deadly, dealing massive damage if you get caught in it. Targeting the hands first makes the fight easier, as he can't swing or slap you around once they're destroyed. Defeating him grants access to powerful weapons like the Water Bolt and dungeon-exclusive armor, making him a crucial step before hard mode. Deerclops. A boss that feels completely out of place because it is. Straight from Don't Starve, Deerclops wanders into Terraria with a freezing breath attack, flying debris, and the power to make your screen shake violently. It's supposed to be a mid-pre-hard mode boss, but let's be real. Most players forget it even exists. Wall of Flesh. The final pre-hard mode boss, the Wall of Flesh is a horrifying wall that slowly advances across the underworld, shooting lasers and spawning minions. You summon it by throwing a guide voodoo doll into lava, which sacrifices your guide NPC. Beat it, and your world enters hard mode, where everything gets way harder and your peaceful Terraria life is over. The fight requires a long bridge to run across, as stopping for even a moment can result in getting swallowed by the wall. Once defeated, it drops the pawn hammer, which is essential for breaking demon altars and unlocking hard mode ores. Queen Slime. You thought King Slime was too easy? Meet his royal upgrade. Queen Slime dashes, jumps, and rains crystal slimes from above. Unlike her gelatinous counterpart, she can actually put up a fight, at least for a little while. Most players defeat her once and then never think about her again. The Twins. Hard mode's answer to the Eye of Cthulhu. The Twins are two mechanical eyes with their own unique attack patterns. Retinazer fires relentless lasers, while Spasmatism spews cursed flames. Both become even deadlier in their second phase. Retinazer's laser spam becomes overwhelming, and Spasmatism starts acting like a flamethrower. Since you have to fight both at once, this boss is a huge difficulty spike for new hard mode players. Defeating them is essential for advancing, as they drop Souls of Sight and Hallowed Bars, key ingredients for stronger gear. The Destroyer. The mechanical version of the Eater of Worlds. The Destroyer is a massive robotic worm that fires deadly lasers and releases drones upon taking damage. Unlike the Eater, you can't break it into pieces. Every segment stays connected, meaning the whole boss shares one long health bar. The fight is chaotic, as lasers and probes fill the screen, forcing players to dodge constantly. However, with piercing weapons like Daedalus Stormbow, the fight becomes significantly easier. Defeating the Destroyer is essential for unlocking stronger weapons and armor. Skeletron Prime. A mechanical upgrade of Skeletron, Skeletron Prime has 4 deadly limbs: a saw, a cannon, a vice, and a laser. Unlike his pre-hard mode counterpart, he doesn't need to spin to deal serious damage. His weapons do that for him. The fight is all about mobility, as getting caught by his arms can be devastating. The safest strategy is focusing on the Prime Cannon first to reduce projectile spam. Defeating him grants access to Souls of Fright and more hallowed gear, a necessary step in preparing for the final bosses. Plantera. Found deep in the jungle, Plantera is a giant carnivorous plant that awakens once you defeat the mechanical bosses. The first phase is slow but manageable, but once it reaches half health, Plantera rips itself open and goes berserk. The second phase is a high-speed bullet hell, where dodging is the only thing keeping you alive. Defeating Plantera unlocks the Jungle Temple and the powerful Golem boss. It's a turning point in hard mode progression, rewarding players with strong weapons like the Venus Magnum and the Seedler. Golem. Golem is the guardian of the Jungle Temple and one of the most straightforward bosses in hard mode. It starts slow, launching fireballs and occasionally punching you with its massive fists. However, after breaking its hands, Golem's head detaches and starts shooting lasers, making the fight more intense. The temple arena is usually cramped, which makes dodging tricky. Defeating Golem unlocks endgame content, allowing the cultists to appear and setting the stage for the lunar events. While not the hardest boss, it's a major checkpoint in hard mode progression. Fishron. Fishron is an optional but extremely tough boss that can be summoned by fishing in the ocean with a truffle worm. He's faster and more aggressive than most hard mode bosses, with devastating attacks and a final phase where he becomes nearly invisible. His drops include the Tsunami Bow and Fishron Wings, some of the best gear available before Moonlord. Fighting him requires precise movement and a strong weapon, otherwise, he'll turn you into fish food. Empress of Light. A beautiful yet deadly boss, the Empress of Light is summoned by killing a prismatic lacewing at night. She attacks with colorful, fast-moving projectiles that create a bullet hell scenario. If fought during the day, she enrages and can one-shot the player, making her a high-risk, high-reward challenge. Defeating her grants access to the powerful Terra Prisma summon, but only if you defeat her entirely during the daytime. Lunatic Cultist. Defeating the cultists outside the dungeon summons the Lunatic Cultist, a fast-moving magic user with illusions and devastating attacks. His fight is unpredictable, with clones and dragon summons adding to the chaos. Defeating him triggers the lunar events, unleashing powerful enemies and setting up the final battle against Moonlord. Moonlord. The ultimate Terraria boss, Moonlord is a massive Lovecraftian horror with multiple eyes that unleash deadly beams. His fight is relentless, requiring constant movement and high-end gear. Each eye must be destroyed before attacking his core, making the battle a true endurance test. His drops include the best weapons in the game, like the Meowmere and Last Prism, marking the peak of Terraria's challenge. I'll be making similar videos. Subscribe and like to see more.